Chris Lee of Southeastern 14 here to predict and preview the Arkansas Texas A&M baseball series this weekend. A lot on the line for both teams, national seeding implications, the SEC West title. If Arkansas wins a game, it will be the SEC West champs. The Arkansas Razorbacks have a chance to win the SEC's overall title, depending on Kentucky Vandy in this series. So a lot going on in what I think is a very interesting series. I will unpack it all in just a minute, starting with Arkansas. But first, a reminder, our channel brought to you by our friends at BetOnline, your number one source for all your summer sports this season, from MLB, golf, the NBA, and NHL playoffs. All the latest baseball stats, news, and scores available to follow your favorite teams. Get the latest odds and lines, including the latest team matchups, player props, and odds on just about every sport out there. Head to the website today. Use your mobile device to get in on all the action. Bet online, where the game starts. All right, let's start with the Arkansas Razorbacks. We always start with the visitors, and we'll start with Arkansas, which comes in having played pretty well. Arkansas recovered from a series loss to Kentucky last weekend by winning 2 of 3 against Mississippi State, a very tough Mississippi State club at that. The Razorbacks had the midweek off after playing a couple of midweek games before Kentucky, so pitching will be fresh coming into Texas A&M, which you need your pitching to be fresh when you face these guys for sure. All right, the lineup at Arkansas is an interesting one. Not a real superstar in there, but some good players. Peyton Stovall, Ben McLaughlin, Jared Sprague-Lott have had good years. McLaughlin and Stovall are lefties. Kendall Diggs, a lefty who's played a long time, has had a little bit of a down year, and Nolan Souza, a lefty who could plug in, or maybe not. I'll get to the reason why for that in just a minute when we get to A&M. But you've got some guys, Hudson White, their catcher, has really had a hot last couple of weeks as he's upped his offensive numbers. He's a righty. Peyton Holt has had a nice season in center field. So you've got some pieces there. It may not be the All-American dominated hitting lineup that you see in some other teams in this league, and frankly, that you've seen from Arkansas at times. But it is a solid lineup. Some guys who will take a few walks, especially McLaughlin. And so this will be a challenge to pitch to, because you're not going to have an easy time facing these arms. And boy, Arkansas has got some. Hagen Smith, the headliner, he, I think, no doubt your SEC pitcher of the year to this point. He's got a 49% strikeout rate. That means almost half of the hitters he has faced, he has struck out. That is incredible. You don't see that pretty much ever. Behind them, their rotation has struggled lately. Mason Molina, the lefty, so that gives them 2 lefties to start, and Brady Tygart, the righty, have not been as good as they were earlier in the year. The bullpen has been a little bit hit and miss compared to Arkansas standards. And let's keep in mind, this has been everybody's choice as the best pitching staff in the country lately. But what happens when you play some teams in this league that can hit a little bit, like Kentucky, like Mississippi State? Sometimes there's cracks in things, and Will McIntyre hasn't been as good lately as he was earlier in the year, but he's a guy that they can go to for bulk relief, and just so many guys there. Cody Frank, Gage Wood, Christian Fouch, Ben Bybee, just a lot of options there for Dave Van Horn and the Razorbacks. Now, fortunately for him, even when your bullpen's faltering, any of those guys can get through 7 innings in a start. So I would think that Arkansas's rotation is going to start to pitch a little bit better than it has. Every team in the country, I don't care how good you are, you have a blip at some point where you're not quite as good as you've been, but that is an awfully high standard for Arkansas. Still, if not the best pitching staff in the country, top to bottom, especially the way Smith has been so consistent all year, that they would have to be in that very small list of teams that you can count on one hand. Let's get to the Aggies. And this is a lineup that has been fearsome. And we talked about Arkansas struggling, not quite having been what it was earlier in the year. You've seen a little bit of pullback on A&M's offense the last couple of weekends, as the Aggies have lost the first 2 games of the series to both LSU and Ole Miss, and then won the finale, won a midweek game in the middle of that with Rice. By the way, I think these might be the only 2 teams in the conference that have not lost a midweek game, which again speaks to some pitching depth. But the lineup, My goodness, there's not an easy out in here. I'm gonna go catcher all the way through DH. Jackson Appel, Ted Burton, Travis Chestnut, Gavin Grahovac, Ali Camarillo, the shortstop, outfield of Caden Sorrell, Jace Laviolette, Braden Montgomery, and the DH of Hayden Schott. I've got a Bill James formula of how many runs do you create for your team in all aspects of offensive contribution. The lowest guy in here is Camarillo at 7.5 runs per 27 outs. You've got, what is it? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 of these guys above 10 outs or 10 runs per 27 outs. That's outstanding. Sorrell not far behind. He is a guy that it's broken into the lineup as a regular. I don't think he started the season there, but he's been great in left. We've talked about how they field before the left side of the infield. I've really liked those guys when I've seen them. This is just a lineup that has slumped a little bit lately compared to A&M standards, but on the whole for the season, in terms of what they've done, the production has been incredible. This is easily a top 5 lineup in the country. Now, here's an interesting thing. Sorrell, Laviolette, Schott, all lefties. Montgomery, a switch hitter. So against a lineup that is 2/3 lefties in the rotation, this is a team, and Arkansas, by the way, the bullpen in terms of lefties, they've got Parker Coyle, Stone Hewlett. Those are the guys that they bring out of the bullpen. Colin Fisher was their 4th starter. So if he were an option, he's a lefty, but I think he's done for the year with injury. So just if you want some more info on the lefty-righty breakdown, there it is. But back to the Aggies, let's get to the pitching. The offense is just incredible. Montgomery's got a chance to be a first-team All-American. Laviolette's going to be in that discussion too, but those guys have just both been amazing. And Jackson Appel, their catcher, maybe the best offensive catcher in the league. If not, he's pretty close. I guess Ike Irish at Auburn would like a word in that discussion. But point is, Aggies are just so balanced everywhere across the board with that lineup. Now for A&M, here's where the struggles have come. Ryan Prager, their lefty, has been great all year, but he's not been elite like he was earlier in the year. He's still been pretty good. I think if I were putting together a team of 3 All-SEC pitchers on the first team, which I will do, I think Prager's probably on there, depending on how he pitches this weekend. The issue for them lately has been in the 2 and the 3 holes. Justin Lampkin has struggled a little bit, and Tanner Jones has struggled enough where he got kicked out of the rotation entirely. And this was interesting what Jim Schlossnagle did here. They brought in Shane Sadeo. Now, they've got a really deep bullpen. I might argue that A&M's bullpen with Sadeo in it is the best in the league. With apologies to Arkansas, I mean, it's close, but the Aggies are really, really good. And it's not just guys with good ERAs. It's guys that can pitch a lot of innings. What Jim Schlossnagle did last weekend was take Sadeo out of the bullpen and move Tanner Jones out of the rotation, and Sadeo slid into that 3 spot. Why is that significant? Well, first of all, Sadeo went 7 shutout innings in his start last weekend. That's significant. But number 2, if you've got a weakness in this bullpen, it is now lefties. You've got Evan Aschenbeck, he's a lefty. He's thrown 51 innings of an ERA of 194, and he is probably your best relief pitcher in this league. But here's the problem. After that, it is all right-handers by my calculation. The guys you might see, Isaac Morton, Chris Cortez. Jones is a righty pitching out of the bullpen now. Brad Rudis, Brock Peary, Josh Stewart, Weston Moss, all righties. Now, those guys have all pitched and all pitched pretty well. In fact, guys with ERAs under 3 are Stewart, Peary, Rudis, who's got an ERA of $1.26, Aschenbeck, who's under 2, and Chris Cortez is just a little bit above that at 371, but he's thrown 43 2/3 innings, and I think there's a lot of value in a guy who can go a little bit of length there where a lot of guys can't. I've got some tolerance for a higher ERA from a guy who can eat innings, and Cortez is a very valuable piece there. But here's the point. The one weakness for A&M was starting pitching, and in terms of helping to solve that in those 2 and 3 holes, they moved their second-best lefty out of the pen and into the rotation. So when Jim Schlossnagle pulls these guys at some point this weekend, you're going to have to go right-handed heavy and hope it works, other than Aschenbeck, who's good for maybe 3, 4, 5 innings on a weekend, and that covers a lot of sins. But just going to note that for a pitching staff that I've loved all year, some changes to the way they are composing it going into the weekend that could have an effect down the line. As for the series prediction, when things are pretty equal, and I think they're pretty equal in this case between these two teams, I like Arkansas's pitching better. Even though Arkansas has struggled in those two spots, 2 and 3, it's better when A&M's thrown out there. I think I like A&M's bullpen a little bit better. But on the whole, I think I like Arkansas's rotation better. By the way, A&M has benefited a little bit by not playing Tennessee and Kentucky, which also I guess Arkansas hasn't played Tennessee. So when you look at ERA and hitting numbers, you look at who a team has played and hasn't played. So that goes into context a little bit too. But bottom line, I think these two teams are pretty close. Nobody would debate that A&M's lineup is better. A&M is at home. I think this team is due to play a little bit better than it's played lately. Give me the Aggies to take the series, but I think it's really close. This could be the best series we see in the country all year. Can't wait to see how it shakes out. When it is over with, we'll recap it here at the channel. We're going to do all SEC teams at some point this weekend. We'll get you ready for Hoover. Best way to catch all our content, hit the like button, hit the subscribe button. I'm Chris Lee. We're Southeastern 14, presented by Bet Online.